Okay.
Welcome, one, all, and those leaving the country because of the Shadow King, to the 181st episode of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 9th of November, 2016, and featuring Clash, co-owner of A Lonely Heart, written by Patrick Ness and starring the myriad cast of Class. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell,
Shadow King? I thought he was the Orangutan King.
Randy Ronson McCulloch,
How you doing there, eh?
and Tim the Enchanter Sheridan.
Hello?
We can hear you, Tim.
Yep.
Yes.
Seems
Yes, so
mildly
sorry.
confused.
Bill's intro cut off, so I wasn't sure if he was finished.
Okay, then. Well, sometimes that happens here on Discord. We just have to
Yes,
go with it, eh?
Yep.
You dirty. He
Well,
really
yeah.
got beat a goose there?
I'm working on perfecting my Canadian accent there, because I'm going to have to go up there with Trump running the country there, eh?
Watch out for them there moose.
Romeo Moon and Miles will not be with us this evening, essentially due to election night fatigue.
Or family issues, as I believe I heard that was Miles' problem.
It's a mixed bag.
Are you planning to keep up that accent for the next 2 hours?
I'm going to try there.
Gonna nip it good.
So why don't we get right down to business there, and let's go on to the news. And our first piece of news is birthdays, of which we have none. Not to say that there weren't birthdays, but there weren't many big ones there. So we're going to move right on to deaths, of which there are none. No famous Doctor Who deaths this week.
Reaper didn't find anybody today.
So going on again here to episode news, which I hardly ever get to do because normally we got birthdays or deaths. And we have a little piece of news here from Children in Need. Now, you all might remember that Children in Need was the big charity company that the BBC runs that tends to do Doctor Who promos or shorts during their special. And this year's not going to be any different. This year, they're going to have the Doctor Who Christmas special, The Return of Dr. Mysterio, and they're going to have a sneak peek at it.
I remember when they used to film sketches for this event.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's kind of up in the air. I mean, there was a couple of years that it didn't happen at all. I think during the specials, they didn't have any...
That's understandable during the specials.
Right.
But you would think that since things are on a more regular schedule, they would still do it, but whatever.
I think the problem now is that they're actually doing production work for the upcoming season. And don't have time to do a short. So, this year, Children in Need is going to be on the 18th of November, which is a Friday. And somewhere in there, we'll see a few minutes from Return of Dr. Mysterio. I'm trying to remember what the last Children in Need special was.
Wait, so they're going to be airing the Children in Need fundraiser on the day that everyone's going to be too busy playing Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Pretty much there.
Bad BBC.
That's a case of the universe's right hand not knowing what the left hand's doing there. You can't blame them. They got to do it when they got to do it. And I think that's all going to do.
I would also argue, Bill, that it depends upon when they get the release date for Pokemon Sun and Moon over there, too.
This is true.
Because I believe Europe usually has different release dates.
Sure.
Usually has different release dates. Matter of fact, sometimes they seem to get stuff before we do.
I know X and Y was supposed to be everywhere at the same time, but Sun and Moon first. I'm waiting for Google to catch up because it's always slower when I'm on a voice call. So,
well, why don't we move on while you look this up?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We have no other episode news, so Tim.
Oh,
News
Brent doesn't get
and-
it till the 23rd.
Haha.
There you go.
Should have a
So
few
we
days.
have a whole bunch of photos released for the upcoming 5th episode of Class called Brave-ish Heart. Features April looking like they're in a cave, the new head teacher in a sun-drenched room with sunlight, and people standing around.
People are always standing around.
And you know what it doesn't have? Janet Fielding, despite that title.
Still nice of them to have the reference, though. But I want to take this moment to point out that this will not be a scored episode tonight because this is obviously a two-parter, and this is part 2 of what we're going to be seeing here. We see more of April's family there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We see them with Ram's dad and Tanya.
Back in the chair.
Yeah, that's odd.
That's interesting there.
And the last pictures are spoilers.
Only sorta. I mean, they're main characters, so you kind of know.
Either it's going to be dark and depressing, or it's going to obviously be happy returns. It's one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Cast isn't slaughtered by the bad guy in episode 5.
Because then you
So
wouldn't have much of
predictable.
a series afterwards.
We wait until
Yeah.
episode 9
That-
and 10.
That would be such a twist, though. Imagine just every single member of the main cast is slaughtered in episode 5, and the Doctor has to show up in episode 6. Like, listen, don't fuck it up this time. You guys are the new ones.
Okay, then.
So this is V the series, then I take it.
Or it could be like The Walking Dead there, where, no one is safe.
That or Game of Thrones in modern day. Just this once.
All right.
Everybody dies.
Our next piece of news is that Lovarzi, the UK's leading scarf shop, or at least online scarf shop, is launching a TARDIS and a Dalek Christmas scarf and what looks to be a winter cap as well. Which
Beanie or
we
something
found
to affect,
via the
yeah.
company website, and they're all pretty much shades of blue.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. It's not a TARDIS and a Dalek. It's TARDIS and Dalek. TARDIS and Dalek set. They're all the pieces feature both.
And it looks like it's a scarf and hat.
Yep. It's a scarf and hat duet
Yeah.
with Daleks and TARDISes.
Okay, so this is just the tied scarf and the untied scarf, right? Not separate pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
5 photos of 2. Thanks, Obama.
Actually, you need to stop saying thanks, Obama. You're going to have to start saying thanks,
Hey.
Trump.
I have a month and a half of thanks, Obama.
We're going to
And if
replace all your guns with swords. Thanks,
I'm never-
Obama. No, really, thanks.
I would like to point out there for the record that people saying thanks Obama is why so many people voted for Trump. Just saying.
If Obama can say thanks, Obama, it's safe
Yeah.
to say.
Okay, so let's move on here. And the next piece of news comes out of Cardiff. And it's not the best news in the world here. It is the fact that the Doctor Who experience, which has been in operation since 2011, will be closing its doors sometime next year.
I think I can blame that on Trump, right? Oh, no, that was Monday.
The thing is that in 2012, the Doctor Who experience had moved into a building that had been designed specifically for it, but they only had a 5-year sublease from the city of Cardiff, and that comes to an end in the summer of 2017. So they're basically at this point saying, okay, we're done. And it's been a great 6-year run. There is an online petition to try to save the experience as well as a Twitter account, but we don't know if that's going to come to anything.
Crowdfund that shit.
We also do not know.
We get that they're cutting the BBC budget. Crowdfund that shit.
I mean, does the Doctor Who experience not charge admission?
I'm not sure if it does or not, to be honest.
I was pretty sure it did.
Because if it doesn't, it should be, because then it could be self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It would be like basically a big Doctor Who museum of all the sets and the props and everything they have there.
Yep, standard admission is £14 in advance or $16 at the door. There's also family prices and merchandise packs.
So at usual rates, not the current $1.25 or less that the dollar to pound, at usual rates, that would be about $20 admission. Now pre-Brexit rates. And I don't know how much. I've never seen any statistics on how many visitors they get per annual. But at $20 per head,
you'd think they'd be doing at least a decent amount.
You'd think they could be paying their own lease there.
Unless that money is going straight into the show budget.
Which is really not a way to run it.
No, it should be covering rent. It should be covering staff fees. And then any money over that should be going into the show budget.
And it's because of stuff like this that I'm thankful that one guy last week is actually trying to open up his own museum of classic Who and apparently some modern Who stuff.
It's not going to have the same extensiveness.
Yeah, the thing with the Doctor Who experience is they would literally film in the set and then set it up in the Doctor Who experience while they were in between filming blocks.
That's just the thing, though, but that was also directly led by the BBC, too, which helped with that. But then again, BBC also wants its money out of it, too. So that's what the problem probably is with that.
Indiegogo for that shit.
They could, but that's if they wanted to. There'd have to be enough. There has to be enough funders to actually keep it up and running.
It's Doctor Who. There are enough people in Britain that will pay a couple pounds to keep the Doctor Who experience going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was the biggest Star Trek fan in the world, I always regretted never being able to make it out there to the Star Trek experience in Las Vegas. And now I'm going to miss this one, too. Oh, well. Can't win them all.
As the cookie crumbles.
Now, there's also no word yet on if they're planning on opening up the experience somewhere else. But even if they did, it wouldn't have the same accessibility between the studio in Cardiff and wherever they opened it up.
Unless they opened it up pretty close, but it's unlikely. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and that'll take us to our next piece of news, which is in video releases. Tim?
Yes, the animated Power of the Daleks Episode 1 has been released on the BBC Store exactly 50 years after it was first seen in the United Kingdom. This is UK only for now. Viewers can download the episode for $1.89, £1.89 SD, or $2.49 in HD, or they can buy a season pass which gives access to all 6 episodes for $9.99 or $12.99 SD rate. The episodes are being released on a daily basis, though some BBC Store users have reported they already have access to all 6.
You see, that's not how they should have done it there. What they should have done is release them one a week, pretty much on the exact anniversary of their release schedule. That would have been kind of cool there. What do you think?
Well, I would love to do it that way, but the kids with their ADHD these days.
The only way I would do one a week is if I was waiting until Class episode 8 aired, and go from there.
But then it wouldn't be on the 50th anniversary of that episode's release.
Right.
That was my point, is they released episode 1 50 years from when they first showed episode 1. It would be cool if they had released episode 2 50 years after they first showed episode 2.
Pretty cool. I'm also seeing that the animation was made in a 16:9 ratio than the original 4:3 of the original TV show to fit most people's widescreen TVs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's rare to have a standard, what used to be standard def ratio TV. Widescreen has become the new standard.
Yet we have like 2 or 3 TVs in this house that are the old school standard that we can't find homes for anymore.
Nobody wants them. Nobody needs the old...
I think we actually do have our first widescreen TV in the house now. So yeah, we are kind of catching up on that technology.
Our first widescreen died because of a lightning storm.
It's also
surge protect it.
It's also the first device in the house ever to use HDMI cable.
What was that, Bill?
So it's also the first device in the house ever to use an HDMI cable.
Nice thing, HDMI. Pretty much my entire video selection runs on it, except for the old Nintendo Wii, which is
I
component.
think, none of my monitors in this entire house use HDMI. None of them. I know some of them can use it, but...
What are they using?
Mostly the red, white, and yellow prongs is usually what we have.
Oh, Matt, I'm so sorry there.
That includes my PlayStation 3.
That's a crying shame. That is a crime against nature there.
Welcome to the kind of budget we got.
Hey, up until a couple of years ago, the most advanced thing we had was a coax cable.
Feeling like I'm in the dark ages.
The first 3 episodes of Power of the Daleks were premiered at the National Film Theatre in London on Saturday afternoon. And featured appearances by the people who worked on the animation, as well as the original production team from 1966, including designer Derek Dodd, actress Anique Wills, and runner and future Doctor Who director Graham Harper, who, at the time he worked on Power of the Daleks, was just 3 weeks into his BBC career.
I think he was a production assistant at that point.
Yeah, he wasn't. He definitely was not a director at that point. That would come later, eh?
Also making appearances were Fraser Hines, Frank Skinner, and Steve Moffat.
Kind of interesting to have Fraser Hines there, because he wasn't introduced until the next serial.
Right.
So now you can tell the next story.
Yes, it also has to do with the Power of the Daleks. In addition to the black and white edition, the BBC have announced that a color version of the animated story is to be released at the end of 2017. The black and white version is being released this weekend on the BBC Store, and on 31st December the color version will be released, by a special edition Blu-ray, both the black and white and color version.
So Blu-ray will have everything.
Did we just lose a Tim?
I'm wondering if we just
Hello?
lost a Tim. Yeah,
Oh, there
okay.
he is.
Hello? Yep. Sorry. BBC America is screening the black and white version weekly from November 19th, and will make the color version available exclusively on their digital platforms towards the end of November. And then from January 24th on, both versions of the story will be available on a Region 1 DVD exclusively at Barnes & Noble.
Well, I'll have to grab that at Barnes & Noble.
Mm-hmm.
So you can watch episodes digitally only on Amazon, but if you want the DVD, you have to go to Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, I go to Barnes & Noble all the time. It's right behind the mall.
Mm-hmm. Usually one of the places I do visit when I get at least a one prolonged day visit.
It's pretty much the first place I go when I need a Doctor Who DVD in a hurry, eh?
And don't forget the Seasons of Red Dwarf.
I usually get those from Amazon.
Mr. on sale on Amazon, yeah.
All right.
Power of the Daleks count as post-apocalyptic?
Not really,
Not
because
really.
it's colonizing another planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of more of a Star Trek-y theme, especially with the name.
I'm not sure if Star Trek was out yet.
Yes,
think
it
it
was.
was.
Yeah.
Yes,
Was
it
it?
was. Yes, it
I
was.
thought this predated Trek by a few months.
No. Trek premiered in '66. And
This
so
was also
this was '67.
67? Oh, okay.
So it's more or less the same time.
Right.
But what I'm saying is it's kind of countering that same feel of, mankind colonizing worlds. It's just this one was full of hostile aliens. I'm double checking that to be sure, by the way.
If anything, I would label it more of a dystopian.
This GIF is hypnotized.
GIF, damn it, GIF.
Yes.
There's no you.
The original series started September 8, 1966.
What do you mean? No,
So,
you?
and
You
Power
don't need
and-
a you to say GIF.
Power, I guess, aired in November '66, so 2-month difference. So,
So that moves on to my next piece, which is Lethbridge Stewart, Blood of Atlantis, the next to come out of the Lethbridge Stewart series of books by Candy Jar Books. From Doctor Who News, could Atlantis really have arisen in the Aegean Sea? Lethbridge Stewart's nephew, Owain Vine, and a group of eco-protester friends are attempting to oppose an operation undertaken by Rolf Vorster. Aren't these supposed to be Earthling names? A ruthless South African mining magnate with his own private army, who is out to harvest as much Atlantean riches as he can. Lethbridge Stewart, along with Anne Travers, is called in to investigate a missing Russian submarine that appears to be connected to Atlantis, recruiting the colorful, eccentric archaeologist Sonia Montilla, or Montilla, depending on where she's from, along the way. All the while, Captain Bugayev and an undercover Spetsnaz team are investigating the fate of their government's missing submarine, a complication that could light a major fuse on the Cold War. Out there somewhere, Atlantis is growing, and its reach is utterly inimical to human life.
Dun, dun, dun.
So Candy Jar has been fairly prolific of late. They just keep coming out with stuff.
Yeah, they just keep hammering out these books like it's nothing.
It's like every other month. They're like the new pulp writing of Doctor Who these days.
Right. I'm curious if they had to do anything special to get the rights to Travers. I'm not sure if they've used the Travers in the past, but I know that was an issue with Yeah, Travers was the one that they could not get the rights for the invasion, and that is having trouble with the rights for Downtime, right?
I'm not certain about that.
It's not that they couldn't get the rights for Travers for the invasion. It's the fact that they couldn't get the actor back at the time. He was busy.
Mm-hmm.
I could have sworn it was they couldn't get the rights from the
No.
writer.
No. That was completely an actor problem.
Okay.
So they had to pick up somebody else.
Hmm.
I have the DVD. I know. They talked about it.
Actor availability is always an issue.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially back then.
It's one of the reasons we never got the closing scene from Angels Take Manhattan was because the actor that played Rory's father wasn't available.
Ah.
That would have helped improve the episode.
It would have probably bumped it up a point or two, at least in our estimation.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, BBC Audio has also been fairly prolific of late, and they've come up with some more novelizations from old Target books. Of these, we've got 2 novelizations, one apparently new storyline, and 1 Virgin book novelizations. All have been converted into audio. The first one is Doctor Who and the Day of the Daleks, which is written by Terrence Dix and read by Richard Franklin, who I believe was the actor that played Mike Yates.
Yes.
And does, in our opinion, kind of a mediocre Third Doctor.
Well, as long as he's not being forced to do voices, I'm sure he could probably read.
That was the one that I'm pretty sure the Daleks had to be shoehorned in after the draft was written, if I recall.
Oh yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. This was also the first time they had those particular ape-like sidekick guys.
Mm-hmm.
The Ogrons.
The Ogrons.
Ogrons. Yep.
And just to remind you, this one's about humans from the 22nd century, time jumping back to the 20th to assassinate a diplomat. And they all get caught up with it, and the Doctor gets transported to the future and discovers, of course, that the Daleks are behind it all. And that one runs about 4 hours and 30 minutes. Next, we have Doctor Who, the Space Pirates, also written by Terrence Dix and read by Terry Malloy, also known as Devros. This one, when space beacon Alpha 1 disintegrates into lumps of metal, General Hermack and the Space Corps realizes that space pirates have discovered a new source of precious aragonite. After witnessing further destruction, the General leaves a squad of guards on Beacon Alpha 4, just as the TARDIS materializes. Suspected by the Space Corps of being pirates, then pursued as spies by the pirates themselves, the Doctor, Zoe, and Jamie attempt to unmask the mastermind behind the thefts of aragonite. In doing so, they risk execution, explosion, and asphyxiation in the vacuum of space.
I think that's one of the last pirate stories I haven't watched / listened to.
And that runs about 4 hours, eh?
Mm-hmm.
So now we move on to Doctor Who, Tales from the TARDIS, Volume 1. 12 stories in distant times, including The Curse of Peladon, which we covered not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Read by John Pertwee. So that must be an old audio recording that they've dusted off and put back out.
Must be a collection of old ones then, maybe.
Kinda by Terrence Dix, read by Peter Davidson. That's a episode I believe we have not reviewed yet.
We haven't
not yet.
But it's on our list. Attack of the Cybermen by Eric Sayward, read by Colin Baker. This one we have done.
Yep.
Out of the Darkness, read by Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant.
Oh, they broke the combo. That should have been a Seventh Doctor novelization.
The Sixth Doctor and Perry fall into danger in 3 gripping original short stories by David Stone, Guy Clapperton, and Michael Collier. And Short Trips, read by Nicholas Courtney and Sophie Aldred. Familiar Doctor Who characters are caught up in intriguing and original situations in 6 short stories by Steve Lyons, Jonathan Bloom, Tara Sams, David A. McKinty, Robert Perry, and Mike Tucker and Paul McGears. That is 9 hours and 30 minutes worth of listening.
And
Definitely
some of these
for
actors
those
aren't
long
around
trips,
anymore.
eh?
And some of these actors aren't around anymore, so they're probably worth a pretty penny.
And then finally, December, we'll see a release of Scales of Injustice, written by Gary Russell and read by Dan Starkey. Original novel featuring the Third Doctor. When a boy goes missing and a policewoman starts drawing cave paintings, the Doctor suspects the Silurians are back. With the Brigadier distracted by questions about unit funding and problems at home, the Doctor swears his assistant Liz Shaw to secrecy and investigates alone. But Liz has inquiries of her own, teaming up with a journalist to track down people who don't exist. What is the mysterious glass house, and why is it so secret? As the Silurians wake from their ancient slumber, the Doctor, Liz, and the Brigadier are caught up in a conspiracy to exploit units' achievements. A conspiracy that reaches deep into the heart of the British government. And
I'm sure this isn't the case.
Long.
I'm sure this isn't the case, but it would be amazing if Liz Shaw teamed up with Sarah Jane years before she ever met the Doctor.
I was wondering that. That would be kind of an interesting connection there, but I don't think so. That would be interesting, to say the least. So now there's a couple of contests that go with this, one of which is for Day of the Daleks. These are worldwide, which surprises me. But nonetheless, to win the audiobook courtesy of BBC Audio, you simply answer the following question. Which time travel principle was first mentioned by the Doctor during this story? Please send your answers along with your name, address, etc. to comp-day@drwhonews.net with the subject No Complications. And this is open worldwide and closes on the 4th of December. Only 1 entry per household. And then finally, you could win Tales from the TARDIS, Volume 1. This is also open worldwide, also closes the 4th of December, and for there you have to answer the following question. Name another audiobook based on a novelization read by John Pertwee. And please send your answers to comp-tardis@drwhonews.net with the subject Time Will Tell.
Dun, dun, dun.
And just to remind you, there is still time to enter competitions to win September and October audiobooks, closing the 13th of November. Those we have mentioned last week, I believe.
Yep.
So there you have it. More contests, more chances to win stuff. And we will move on now to our Big Finish news, which we have a little bit of.
Yeah, just a little bit. Out now is Order of the Daleks, featuring the 6th Doctor and his new Clark, facing the Doctor's oldest enemy, the Cybermen, the Daleks.
Wah, wah.
Arrive on the planet Strelin, where they go to find some Shoals inserts to be Jellin.
Yeah.
All right, enough. Features Colin Baker and Miranda Raisin as Doctor and companion. Says that Strelin is a grade 3 planet.
Whatever that means.
Means its inhabitants possess neither advanced technology nor knowledge of other worlds.
Thought that was what they referred to as a Class 3 planet. They might just be using class and grade. Because I believe in Rose, the Doctor talks about them, the Nestine invading Earth as a Class 3 planet.
Also out now is The Third Doctor Adventures Volume 2, starring Katie Manning as Joe Grant and Tim Treloar as the Third Doctor. Features The Transcendence of Ephros by Guy Adams, The Hidden Realm by David Llewellyn, and all Third Doctor stories can be found at Big Finish. And it says there's a free episode, The Havoc of Empires Part 1, which can be downloaded for free.
Okay.
Finally, we have a new short trip, which is made in memorial of Paul Spragg, who was a big Finnish colleague. It will be released on December 29th, Paul's birthday, and it is a Seventh Doctor story by American writer Joshua Winisco and read by Big Finish executive producer and Doctor Who actor Nicholas Briggs, and produced by Ian Atkins. That's a nice tribute to a comrade.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor Who Short Trips Forever Fallen will be available for free from the 29th of December. For those interested in the opportunity to write a Doctor Who short trip, we'll see you in May, while the next short trip for release will be November's Doctor Who, The Man Who Wasn't There, later in the month.
Okay.
All right, so I think I skipped what it says.
No. So the last bit then?
That me?
Bill? Yeah, that's you, Bill.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a new trailer for Torchwood 1 Before the Fall. The trailer is essentially a dramatic introduction to what Torchwood is, apparently banking on the fact that this is or at least this series of releases, not the specific release, is the 10th anniversary of Torchwood. It essentially talks about the founding of Torchwood, the fact that it's based in Canary Wharf, and ends on the name of Rachel Allen, who is apparently the companion new girl character of the story. So essentially the Gwen of this box set, who I'm sure is either going to die terribly in either the last episode or in the Battle of Canary Wharf, killed by Cybermen.
Of course.
You know, just to keep things light. But that's about it for the trailer.
Okay, then. And that's about it for the news. We're going to take a few minutes here since we're about 15 minutes ahead of schedule, and there's only 3 of us tonight. And we're going to talk about, of course, first of all, the big elephant in the room there. The reason I'm talking like I'm out there in the Northwoods.
Literally.
Yeah,
Symbolism.
fully intended.
Big
Yes.
Republican elephant.
If you particularly do not want to hear this, either because you just don't want to mix your real world with your Doctor Who, or because you feel like you'll disagree and it'll cause issues, jump ahead to the hour mark, or that would be 12:13 Eastern Time, 11:13 Central Time, if you're listening to us live on Twitch, and we'll be picking up with the 5-minute challenge or such from there.
Well, there I was going. Okay, so actually, hold on a moment.
Okay.
Let me reverse these then, and we can, before we get to that mark, then I was actually going to talk also about a movie that hit theaters. That would be Marvel's Doctor Strange.
Okay, so don't go away yet then.
Mm-hmm. Then we can talk about the election. Anyway, first off, Aaron and I were not planning on seeing this movie this week. Basically because of the reason Erin's not here and the fact that she had to work until 8 on Tuesday and then get up at 4:30 this morning and go into work. And but her family was in town over the weekend and they wanted to go see it. So we got to go see it on Sunday over here at Point, and I have to say that there is finally a movie that has Benedict Cumberbatch in it that I don't want to hate him in.
The consensus that I've heard is that it's right around the same level as Ant-Man. Do you agree with that?
Actually, I like this one better than Ant-Man. I like this one. This one I think falls right below Guardians of the Galaxy for me.
Oh.
Wow, that's some praise. I just still need to see this. I'm still waiting on my usual movie companions to start responding.
Because with Guardians of the Galaxy, I pretty much started smiling the moment I saw that movie, and I was still smiling the same smile when I got out of the theater. This one, I was alternately smiling or going, ooh.
As I've seen, I have seen Doctor Strange, and I have to say it is the most visually impressive Marvel movie I've seen.
Oh, for sure.
That's the indication I've heard, and the trailer kind of gave you a high bar to expect.
There is a scene where the Ancient One introduces Doctor Strange to the astral plane, which the only way I can describe it is an acid trip.
Mm-hmm.
It is a scene of pure LSD. It is unbelievably visually interesting. It makes Stanley Kubrick's entering the monolith scene look tame by comparison. It's unbelievably awesome, and all of the effects are just amazing.
I hear they need more black lights.
So would you say this is this film generation's version of, say, The Matrix?
I don't know if I'd go that far.
I wouldn't say The Matrix, because The Matrix is more of a modernizing of kung fu movies, whereas this is a magic thing.
When I left The Matrix,
I just meant specifically regarding the SFX.
When I left The Matrix, I looked around the real world with a sense of the surreal. You know, is what I'm seeing really real? That kind of thing. I didn't have that feeling with Doctor Strange. But what I did go is I came out of that theater feeling I had seen a really great movie and had enjoyed myself for 2 hours. I had laughed. I had, gone, ooh, I thought it was just amazing. I don't know if the special effects do anything amazing. It's just not really the effects themselves, but how they use them.
Mm-hmm.
But as for the plot, I'd like to ask a question here. Have any of you seen the animated Doctor Strange movie? The one I believe that's on Netflix.
I haven't, no.
I think I have a DVD of it, but I haven't had a chance to sit down with it.
I pretty much mainly know him from the pages of New Avengers and by reputation.
I know him by reputation and Ghost Rider.
I had seen that movie. It was recommended to me by Chris Hampton, our current Geek on Con chair, back when I was living in his house while I was homeless for a year. And it basically, there are a lot of similarities between this movie and the animated one.
Mm.
And it's probably...
In a good way, or...?
Oh, yeah, in a good way.
Okay.
It's probably because it's the same origin. They're both origin stories.
Yeah.
And I think they follow the same origin. But...
there really hasn't been too much of a change in his origin, to be honest, since his creation.
I think the movie version was a little more of a jerk before he had his accident. I'm not going to say what his accident was and what happened because I'm not going to spoiler it.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, it does come off as being very good. My major problem with Cumberbatch, usually is, for me, he's basically acting white bread, not William Hurt levels, but enough that I don't like his face because it looks too smooth, too Ken doll-esque, if you would. And I generally don't like his range of emotions. And here he tends to pull off both rather well. He does do an American accent in this. He comes out as a slightly more emotive Fox Mulder in a way. He has that same kind of sarcastic monotone, that deadpan sarcasm that he uses to discuss things, and it works for this.
Well, it kind of has to be deadpan sarcasm because he's been through so much at this point that it doesn't really shock him anymore.
Now, I've heard on a few places they claim that he is essentially acting as a ripoff of Tony Stark. I've also seen people say that that's pretty much bullshit and that that's just people saying that Stark is the only one allowed to be snarky. Would you say that the latter is probably more true?
I would say that the latter is definitely true. He does not have the level of manicness that Tony Stark comes out with. For those of you that don't know the origin of Doctor Strange, that he starts out as a very gifted surgeon. And he has an accident that causes him not to be able to be a surgeon anymore. And he gets kind of bitter and angry at the world for it until he seeks out the Ancient One, or he basically winds up seeking out Eastern cures and discovers the Ancient One and learns about magic. And that is kind of what happens here, is you wind up with what was a talented jerk, more concerned with his own ego and reputation than anything else, until he has this accident and it causes him to be withdrawn and angry. He lashes out at a rage with a lot of his people because, of course, he can't do what he wants to do. And
I'm guessing something happened to his hands.
Yes. Actually, since it's probably the same origin story, I'm going to spoiler it. If you don't want to know, skip ahead about 15 seconds.
Well, the origin, like the origin or the plot?
The basic plot of how he comes to where he is basically, skip ahead here if you don't want to know, is that he is involved in a massive car accident. And he basically breaks every bone in his hands. And there's nerve damage.
Severe nerve damage.
Very severe nerve damage, to the point that his hands shake constantly. And even so much as trying to open a door is giving him constant pain. At one point, he's mugged in the movie, and he goes to deck someone by instinct, and immediately he's immobilized by the amount of pain his hand goes through.
I have to wonder, considering the amount of gestural spell components been known to use in the comics, does he recover from that?
To a degree.
To a degree, yes.
He still would not be. He would still not be legally allowed to be a surgeon because his hands are too far gone.
Yeah, because a surgeon is extremely high level, but
he kind of learns mind over matter. And there's even he's in the movie he's shown one of their other mages there has lost one of his hands and is still able to cast. So it's more of doing it with your mind than it is, necessarily having
the actual hand gesture. Yeah.
So it's something he has trouble dealing with, but it's something he learns to get over. It is an absolutely great movie. It is a great addition to the MCU. It is something I highly urge you all to go out and see when you can go see it.
Especially since this is the beginning of the rabbit hole, and if it makes enough money, it can go deeper.
Oh, they're already planning more Doctor Strange.
Oh, I hope so.
And I know he's confirmed to appear in Infinity War.
Yeah, in fact, the trailer at the end of it said Doctor Strange will return. So
I would also add that there's actually a little curiosity here. Back in the 90s, Full Moon was actually supposed to make the original Doctor Strange movie. For a reason, Marvel licensing fell out. but they recorrected the story and they called it Dr. Mordred, and Dr. Mordred is actually free on the Full Moon streaming service right now for people interested.
Anyway, in case you wanted to know, over the weekend, Doctor Strange boxed 7 million.
Woo.
Actually, no, excuse me, that was 7 million today. Doctor Strange in the last 5 days has totaled up 98 million. This is not the largest introductory story that they've done. In comparison, Iron Man, when it first came out, boxed 115 million.
I do wonder what the largest November release for the MCU was, though.
Have they had a November release before this?
Was Ant-Man November?
No, it was July.
I was going to say, I think that was more towards summer.
Was it originally going to be November and then delayed?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of, no. I don't remember any delays for it.
I mean, they've had late movies, but usually they've been sequel movies like Thor 2, that kind of thing. But not introductory movies like this.
So it's doing pretty good, and it's their only first November movie ever, so considering that's an odd month for them, it's doing quite well.
Okay, Thor 2 was November. I didn't...
Oh, okay, so there was one.
But like you mentioned, it was a sequel, not a...
Yeah, it wasn't an introduction. People already knew the Thor characters and were going to go see it because they knew it was relevant. And even more people were going to go.
Other than that, the latest in the year was August.
Yep. Normally, MCU movies are summer with an occasional March showing. Like, Captain America Civil War, that kind of thing. But normally, they're summer flicks.
Yeah, it looks like Captain America's seem to be mostly in the spring, except for the first one. Okay, yeah, it looks like they do tend to have the occasional, it looks like they have a fair amount in the spring because the Avengers was May, Iron Man was May. Captain America 2 was April.
May is considering the open gate for summer release. May is the earliest you can have a movie and be considered a summer movie.
Gotcha. Oh, so I guess it looks like that Captain America 2 might have been the earliest in the year with April 4.
I thought it was March, but I could have been a bit off there. April 4 is...
and these are U.S. release dates, by the way. I think the rest of the world mostly got most of these films about a week before the U.S.
Usually do, yes.
But no, this is a great movie. It's a great way to end their MCU year.
I need to poke Fred again and see if we're going to go to this or not. I've got $20 waiting for this.
It's definitely a must-see. It is currently behind all the other MCU movies, but it just started.
I hear that there's an animated Trolls movie that apparently came out, and Doctor Strange already kicked its backside.
Probably. Let me see.
This is right.
Yes, Trolls. I'm trying to find the weekend. Let me see if I can grab the weekly box office here. Nope, that's just going to give me... I'm checking my website. I'm not usually that... I don't go to this website that often. But I can tell you that Doctor Strange made $2 million more than Trolls today. And yeah, that's Trolls like, the little troll dolls. Yeah,
yeah, those things are making a comeback for some reason, and they're making a movie.
The 5-day total for Trolls is about 54.5 million, as opposed to the 98 million currently done by Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah.
The Trolls movie is slightly edging out the Peanuts movie at that point, but that Peanuts movie wasn't that good there, you know. But anyway, yes, go see Doctor Strange, especially if you love the MCU, or if you like magic in general, or if you like martial arts films, because it has a touch of the Eastern martial arts style to it. It's kind of Eastern yin yang style magic, which is kind of cool. And it has some very reality warping scenes and special effects that are just beautiful. So now that that's done, we're going to take a few minutes here and talk about the election, because we spent most of our time talking about Doctor Strange. So you might want to skip ahead 5 minutes if you don't want to hear us talking about politics. We will switch over at the quarter past the hour mark. That sound good for everybody?
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, yesterday was not what I expected. I don't think it's what any of us did.
Nope.
I was surprised that Wisconsin went red instead of blue. Everyone was saying
Yeah, I
it
was
gonna go
watching it
blue.
most of the day. I watched it hovering around 50-50. And then toward the, like, around the time polls closed, or when I assumed they were around the, or at least within a few hours of it, it started to shift slowly toward the red side.
Well, a lot of it was that a lot of people bought into the anti-Hillary haterade that had been going around. Stuff that had been revealed that basically the Russians had been hacking her accounts and basically interfering with our election. Not fun. And
Of course, Russia's very happy at how the election turned out.
Oh yeah. He and Trump, they're best buds, you know.
Apparently.
So yeah, we basically elected a band that's best buddies with the band that's trying to bring the Soviet back into Russia.
A vice president that is all but, it's, I'll say, covertly in favor of shock conversion therapy, so-called convert LGBT individuals to.
Who's basically trying to roll the America back to the 1950s.
Yep.
Back before we had things like civil rights. And basically, Trump has said before the election he's just going to be a figurehead. He said that he's basically going to let the vice president handle all things foreign and domestic while he focuses on being president.
Forgot about that part, yeah.
So basically, he's a figurehead, and Pence is going to run the country. So let's figure that one out, huh?
I don't think it's supposed to work that way.
No, it's really not.
But then again, that's what we get when we get a chimp.
I'm kind of picturing shit happening like Ted Cruz, Secretary of State.
And you said he's going to let Pence handle all things foreign and domestic. It's like, what does that leave?
I remember that conversation happening because they were like, well, what do you know, someone was like, what do you plan to have Pence do? He was like, foreign and domestic policy. And the response was, in other words, your entire job.
Pretty much.
I'm here to look orange.
He's basically the American.
You do realize that by 2020 we're going to have to burn down the White House because everything will be gilded and have Trump labeled on it.
Basically, that's what I was going to say, is that Americans didn't elect Trump the man; they elected Trump the brand name.
Yeah.
And look how good that brand name has become, considering, you know, everything that's had the Trump label on it has failed and went out of business.
And the fact that he's about to get sued for a false university and all this other crazy shit.
See,
actually,
this is what
I'm actually I'm surprised that he actually even got voted in, because I get the feeling he's going to be impeached probably within a couple of months because of everything that's coming down on him now.
I'm hoping at least one of those rape charges goes through, and
I don't know if you've seen
it.
the news recently, but apparently there's people rioting in the streets in every major city right now. From Boston to Los Angeles. as many as 5,000 people in New York.
Well, if anyone
And
sorry.
what they're afraid of is the fact that this is going to turn into the fascist state of Trump. And that's something I'm worried about too, because you've basically elected a personality leader that preaches hate. And the last time
And his party controls all three branches of government.
And the last time this happened was Germany, 1930s. And all it took was one crisis, which they engineered, and boom, suddenly the Nazi party becomes totalitarian and fascist. So we're this close to becoming our enemies. And this is why I'm learning to speak Canadian.
Eatery.
Mm-hmm. Don't you know?
Yonder
So anyway, unless you had something important to say, Tim, it's 1:15.
No, I just want to say I still support all my LGBTQI friends and my Muslim friends and anyone else who's feeling nervous right now. You have a friend in me.
And
That's
women
good
that don't like to be grabbed.
That's good to say.
Mm-hmm.
The only one thing that I'd like to say from this is the fact that the Democratic Party has basically been torn asunder by this, and they don't know where to go now because they don't really have a leader.
Nope.
Hillary's tried, failed. She's out. By 2020, Bernie's too old. Some would have argued that he was too old now. That was one of the reasons I didn't vote for him. But he's definitely going to be too old for it by 2020. And so they really need someone to step forward if there's ever going to be
He only looks old because he used the DeLorean and it fucked up his hair and it ended up delaying the Cubs winning the World Series and put Biff Tannen in charge. So he needs to get that DeLorean back and fix shit the way it's supposed to be.
I would argue that if he was Christopher Lloyd. But we're not talking Christopher Lloyd. We're talking Bernie Sanders, and he's going to be 81 in 2020, which is 1 year past our good run totals. And, once anyone's past the good run number, that's when we're expecting them to kick off at any time.
Oh, he's 3 years. Wait, you said he's 81 now, or he's going to be?
No, he's going to be
81.
Oh, so he's younger than Christopher Lloyd.
He is currently 77.
He's younger than Christopher Lloyd.
By how much?
A year.
A year. And Christopher Lloyd's not one these days that I would want to have run for political office either.
How about Elizabeth Warren?
I don't know too much about Elizabeth Warren, but I've heard her name mentioned a couple of times today.
I know heard her name mentioned.
The majority of what I know is that she was more like she seemed to be Bernie's main pick as if he went on to pick a VP. She was essentially his right-hand woman through much of his campaign.
Well, if she can stand up and actually, get some backing and some support, that might be who we're seeing in 2020.
Oh, her!
That'll be interesting to see.
I know her, yeah. I would vote for her.
But the Democrats need to do something to pick up from this, because at this point, if they don't find someone that they can start stepping behind and unifying behind, they're basically going to cease as a party.
I do hope at this point they give up on trying to push Clinton in elections, because
after
this year, she's not going to win.
After failing in 2008 and failing here, she's done.
Mm-hmm. But at least in 2008, she failed in the primaries.
Yes, but I'm saying this. It's like this was attempt 2. You don't get attempt 3. This isn't baseball.
Yeah.
Her and Jeb Bush can go on the golf course and compete, whatever way people do on a golf course.
I don't know. I don't play golf.
They try to get the lowest amount of swings at the ball, which is crazy talk.
It's already taking most of my attention to try to figure out hockey and curling.
All right,
Okay.
so
Can you smell the
mentioned
Canadian
quarter
bacon?
after, and now it's about to be 20 after. So I think it's time for
Time,
somebody 5 minutes or
Oh,
5 minutes.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn to do the 5-minute challenge there, isn't it?
I suppose.
Go ahead, do the challenge with
Let
the
me
accent.
let me
Do
get
the
this.
challenge.
Let me get this set up here. I feel get a beat on this. I need to get that. I need to make a new tab, and I need to get this stopwatch. All right, ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
So we start out on the planet of the Shadowkin, where one of the members has a plan to have the king keep his heart. He puts something into his chest to anchor him to the world, or anchor his heart there, but it doesn't quite work. And in his rage, the king kills the guy. And we then cut over to April's place, where we discover that she has manifested a sword and basically slashed a chair in half. And that's just our intro. After that, we cut to a little later, and we see her playing the violin, and she breaks a string and cuts her hand, and it quickly heals. So she realizes something's not right. We cut ahead to school, and they start talking about the minds of a soldier in their class, and she has basically a conniption talking about how they were cowards and storms out of the room, where she runs into Ram, who basically tries to calm her down, takes her outside, and they spend a little bit cuddling in the car there. Meanwhile, Miss Quill has run into the new headmistress of Coal Hill, who does a little name dropping and seems to be a little too knowledgeable for what's going on. I believe she mentions the names Smith and John, which should have been a red flag for anybody there. But afterwards, we cut back to April and Ram when some in the car, they run into, well, not literally run into, but in front of the car shows up to be April's father. Somebody she does not want to see, and has an argument, of which point she goes ballistic again and basically threatens him up against a wall. Ram calms her down, and they leave him there. When they proceed to go back to April's house and, do what teens do. Which at the same time, the Shadowkin King was also talking to one of his female Shadowkin on getting a way to anchor him there. And, well, let's just say that the feelings were transposed over to him, and they wind up, Anyway.
Doing it.
Sensei did it first.
Horizontal rumba.
Anyway, afterwards, they go through this painful technique to try to anchor him some more, but it doesn't work. And at the same time, April's father has intruded in on the house after their mother had caught them in bed together. And April once again goes ballistic, knocks the father down, manifests her swords in front of everybody. The king kills the woman he had just slept with, and then while this was going on, he kind of realizes the connection to where Earth is and goes to get there. April, realizing that the king knows this, uses the swords to cut a hole to the Shadow King world and jumps in, and Ram follows behind like a love-struck fool. At the same time, the new headmistress has called Miss Quill in and mentions the fact that there are these blossoms blowing around the town, which apparently bite you and drain and basically eat your flesh. They've been eating squirrels and birds, and every time they eat, they're like tribbles, they reproduce. And this means that pretty soon they're all going to be drowning in these fettles that will eat everybody and smother everyone else.
Fettles.
So they've got trouble. Right there at Coal Hill. And I
City.
believe that's where it ends.
Fettles.
Alrighty then. You got that in 3 minutes and 53 seconds.
A little long, but hey.
Yeah.
There was actually 2 plots going on here, so it was actually a little more of an explanation.
Hey.
All right, but we have time anyway because there's only 3 of us here. So let me open up my dice
I
roller.
take it Aaron didn't have a chance to jot down thoughts earlier.
Well, we watched it today after she came home, but after that I took a nap and she stayed up. So why she couldn't take a nap, I don't know, but I guess she just had too much juice in her. Anyway, so Bill, you're first.
Okay.
What did you like about this episode?
So I liked the scenes in the Shadow World. It made this feel very distinct and very different from what you'd expect from Doctor Who or Torchwood or any of its other sister shows. It just felt like something new, not necessarily 100% original, because you might see something similar to it on, say, Buffy. But for a Doctor Who property, the scenes in the Shadow World just made it feel very distinct.
All right. It did remind me of certain like hell dimensions and stuff you would see in some of these shows. It does better than I think Supernatural ever did of showing hell. So because whenever they have like the court of hell, it's always taking place in some warehouse on Earth. Kind of lame. Anyway, so Matt, you're up next.
It sounded pretty weak sauce, yeah. Something I liked in general. Trying to pick one thing. I liked that Ram and April seem to be gradually growing that relationship bit, and it feels a lot less forced this episode.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's still a little bit out of the blue because
it is a little bit. It seems to be moving quickly, but I think it's also because there's usually actually at least a couple days, if not an entire week, in between each episode.
Yes, but
I think they specifically mentioned it as being. Oh no, never mind. I'm mixing up shows. It was a different show that specifically said 1 week, not this one. Never mind.
Yeah,
ignore me.
But it's implied that there's usually about a week between each episode. But my main issue is that this is somebody who lost his girlfriend, who he was fairly serious with. What would have been 4 weeks ago. So it's been a month.
It's also worth noting that it's recent enough that 1, they're shocked that someone replaced Mr. Armitage, and 2, they're just now putting his name on the list of dead teachers.
Dead and her missing teachers.
By the way, apparently 5 teachers have died since the Doctor showed up in episode 1 to now, because that's how many names were added at below Clara.
The coach, the coach aide, the head teacher.
That's Armitage.
And that's Armitage. So there's
apparently
2 more
2
that
others.
are missing.
Yep. Unless it's just all staff and one of those is
the clean lady, yeah.
That would be 4.
Right.
And there might have been somebody that was killed by the dragon before that we didn't see.
Very possible.
Unless the one that we saw killed by the ghost vines was someone related to the school.
Which is possible, but that would be after Armitage.
Yes, you're right, actually, yeah.
So there might have been someone else that was also taken up by the dragon because it was obviously eating staff.
Or somebody that was killed when the Shadowkin attacked.
Although they did mention that Armitage was officially considered missing and not dead, so it's possible that they held off on putting his name there for a while and put other names, and then they finally gave up and put his name on.
It's possible.
That's also a possibility too, yeah.
You would have thought that there would have been enough leftovers that they would have known he was more than missing, but...
Well, those leftovers were also tossed, I believe, so... Anywho.
So, Tim, you're next. What did you like about this episode overall?
Overall, I really liked they did the April's family plot line, turning dad. The interaction between the 2 characters, the actors' performances was spot on, and it didn't feel. It could have been just one thing too many in an overly complicated storyline, but they pulled it off, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to ask, was April's father supposed to be an addict of some sort?
Alcoholic, I believe.
Okay. Because he looked like he was either in withdrawal or on something, and I figured it was intentional, but I couldn't figure out why.
I think he was drunk driving when he had the accident that did everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Some of the things in here seem to imply that he did it deliberately.
They kind of made it sound like when she was talking about last episode that it was deliberate as well. So
yeah, they mentioned it was believed to be a suicide attempt, but it was treated as something akin to attempted murder due to the fact that they were in the car.
Mm-hmm. Essentially, they looked at it as a murder-suicide. The suicide didn't happen, and the murder didn't luckily happen, but it still crippled his wife.
Or at best, what would it be? Negligent manslaughter or negligent homicide, something like that?
Something to that effect.
In the U.S., it would. They might have a different term for it in England.
Right.
Let's see. I'm seeing what the TARDIS data core has to say about her father. You have to excuse me, it is a bit slow. Meanwhile, what I liked about this episode overall, what did I like about it overall? I guess I kind of liked the introduction of the new headmistress that seemed to know, a little too much about what's going on in the name dropping. That really appealed to me.
I'm waiting for her to drop a name of one of the governors that I think we're more and more expecting to at least hear about, if not from.
Yes, okay. Her father, Hugh, H-U-W, was an alcoholic with suicidal tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
And he purposely drove off a motorway, so...
Yep.
So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'm liking that plot line. It's intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to see where that one goes. All right, so what didn't you like? Bill?
I did not like the various aspects dealing with the sex scene because of the fact that, like with the characterization in episode 1, a lot of it felt very choppy, like the writer was having trouble making it flow organically into the script, which sounds like either rushed or unedited writing, which is an issue that we've discussed in the past.
Or was had to keep rewriting it because they kept saying too explicit.
Also very much a possibility.
Again, you got to remember we are dealing with Patrick Ness as the writer, and he does not have a lot of experience writing for TV. He has done a lot of...
they're probably throwing him a few curveballs that he doesn't know how to quite work around.
I mean, like things that when, like for instance, how they go from it being a major topic of the discussion to it being completely dropped in the span of 5 seconds between the discussion with the same characters. I feel like, there should have been some bleed over. That one line that Tanya throws in, it doesn't feel natural. It feels forced. And I think there might be a few other examples.
Mm-hmm. And again, I think this is another thing. Ness is writing for... He's used to writing for young adults.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference between what you can write and what you can show on TV.
Yes.
I'm a little shocked considering that these characters are established as most, if not all of them, being under 18, that they've been allowed to show as much as they have.
I'm pretty sure that the actors are probably older than what they are.
No, that's definitely the case. But I mean, it might be because I don't think it's showing on BBC One, or at least not until late at night. I might be wrong about that.
And that too.
But if that's probably a big part of it.
I'm still thinking that they're cutting some of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just to remind you, the man has only, including Class, 2 things under his belt, and one of which was a movie based on his own novel.
Mm-hmm. 2 things in terms of screenwriting, anyway. I think he's got another.
Oh yeah, he's got a bunch of writing stuff, but that's his only filmography credits.
Speaking of which, I've just realized that Doctor Who News has not been giving us televised ratings, because episodes 1 and 2 should have ratings by now.
Yeah, they're not. They tend not to do that with spin-offs. They'll do it for Doctor Who Main, but they're not going to do it for the spin-offs.
We'd have to do digging on our own anyway.
Anyway, Matt.
Did not like. Speaking of slightly odd writing, the princess suddenly kind of turned to a douchebag this episode. I mean, like, really bad.
Yeah, they seem to be taking a darker angle with him, and I'm not sure where they're going with that.
I think there were hints of that the previous week, but I think it was a lot more explicit and annoying this week.
Yes, they were being a lot more explicit and a lot more jerkily annoying.
He seems to be jerking around Quill more, but that seems to be leading to the fact that they're basically dangling her the carrot of getting the thing. Yeah. So they're making sure that she has full temptation to take it, but I think they didn't need to.
I don't trust her, so let's poke her with a stick.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sharp stick.
All right, Tim, how about you? Something you didn't like about this episode?
Throughout the episode, I got the feeling that they were leaving out important details for me that I didn't understand. For example, like the whole thing about when April said, "They found us." I thought, wait a minute. In the first episode of Class, the Shadowkin were on Earth, so...
The Doctor fuzzed their records.
Essentially, they didn't actually open the rift themselves. It was just a naturally occurring rift, so in order to get back to Earth, the Shadowkin would have to refigure it out.
The doctor used his magic wand to make them forget the way there. Essentially, he said it in a different way, but that's basically what happened.
Essentially.
So I guess that's just my dumb. But still, I think they could have been.
It was just one line, so it's not exactly shocking that you weren't.
Yeah.
For it, I think I watched the episode multiple times, so I.
Well, I usually only watch these episodes one time myself, but I usually catch everything. Because I'm looking for those explanations myself, so...
All right, so things I didn't like. I felt there was one slight special effects fail in this episode, and that was in the opening scene. The king of the king of the Shadowkin and the female Shadowkin both looked fine. But the douche that set everything in motion seemed to have a little too bland of a makeup job. It looked fake to me. So I was like, hey,
yeah, he seemed a little flat.
Yeah, you look a little flat there. I think you should have spent more time in the makeup chair, eh? Yeah. And it just didn't work for me. All right, so scenes that you liked, and Bill, you're up.
All right, it's a little difficult because any scenes that I would pick are like scenes that exemplified things we already talked about. But I'm probably leaning down on the side where the I forget her name, the new head teacher, kind of just lays out just how much she knows about everything going on.
And you took my favorite scene there.
Damn you, Bill. Damn you, Rand.
You would have gotten the chance to first, so.
Right.
The fact that I always go last means you always get to take my stuff. I always get to take my favorite scene or my least favorite scene.
Well,
Only we got
that's
to
the
take
risk
your
we take.
state.
All right, so that's Bill's favorite scene, and yes, that's a good scene. That's the one where you're kind of like, how much does she know and how? I'm really looking forward to the end of that plot line.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt. So how about you?
I guess I'll go with the second encounter with Dad. That was some intense stuff there.
The one where he shows up at the house?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was pretty intense. And she really kind of went absolutely nuclear there.
I too would love to be able to open up a portal to another world and just jump through it after a stressful moment like that.
I would prefer a TARDIS, but that was me. Just, stalk into the TARDIS and go away. Okay, Tim, you?
I like
Tim.
the debates.
Oh,
Here
sorry,
I am.
go ahead.
Go
I
ahead.
liked the spirited discussion between, I think it's the young African American,
Tanya.
Yeah.
Tanya,
Not American, though.
of African descent, Tanya, and Prince about Miss Quill's status, and Mateus is adding his 2 cents. That whole scene where all talking about that, so I think very well done.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to take a scene related to that, and that is the Prince and Mateus talking about the box, and him basically trying to explain the fact that to him the box is a hope, a kind of a faith wish that someday he'll find the person that can bring them all back. That at least seemed to explain things to me a little better. Okay, so scene you liked least.
All right. I know I'm taking somebody else's scene here, but the scene in which Charlie had the argument with Mateus about, with Tanya about, yes, I'm justified in treating her like a slave, and don't you dare try to give me other points of view.
That's basically the one that Tim put as his favorite scene. So you're counterpointing Tim.
It's okay.
So
I'm tolerant.
I mean, I know at least somebody said that about what they didn't like about the episode. Was it Matt?
Yes.
But this was the specific scene that was the highlight of that, or low light, I don't know, of that issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was there any reasoning behind it, or?
Just because it seems like he's, I mean, granted, I'm at the age where I find teenagers to be annoying and failing to listen to reason more often than anyway, but he particularly seemed to be refusing to listen to reason for the sake of the plot, and just frustrating as all hell.
All right. Matt?
Least favorite scene. Actually, here's a good one that makes me raise my eyebrow. Amy's father was standing next to a dead squirrel. Head tilt.
April.
Why?
April's father.
April.
And that was actually a reveal for the other plot line.
Yeah, but he's just kind of like standing there messing with the phone and staring down at this dead squirrel. Just seems like unusual behavior for any grown person to be doing, but maybe that's just me.
I don't know if he actually was looking at the squirrel or not, because I think at that point he's supposed to be stalking April.
Well, you see, there was a Pokemon, same place as the squirrel, and he was trying to catch it.
Looked to be a much older cell phone, though, but maybe that's just me.
Fair enough.
Well,
especially since they mentioned that it might be the same, or at least it's the same phone
At
number, if
least
not
the
the same
number.
phone from
Yeah, if
before.
not the same phone. Yes, he probably got back as soon as he got out. So.
Yep. According to this,
Still charged.
It was the accident happened when April was 8, and she's 14 now. So
yeah, that was some old school phone.
She should be 16 or 17, at least.
Nope. Oh wait, no, yeah, April. She's
Tanya's
17.
the only one 14.
So 9 years ago. So we're looking at a 2007 era phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think smartphones may have just started at that point.
Probably still work and still be charged.
Yeah.
Well, he's probably, just charging it.
Wait, no, it can't be a Nokia because she was able to cut it in half with the shadow sword.
Raise eyebrow. How could she not be able to cut it with the shadow sword?
Those old Nokia phones would have broken the shadow sword.
I don't buy that for a second.
I remember trying to get the SIM card out of one of them once. I broke the floor trying.
Yes, but that's still a domestic floor. This is an alien.
That's a domestic floor compared to an alien hyper-powered sword. My bets are on the sword.
It's not made of dilacanium.
It also is possible that it was like a first-generation smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
Because those started, during the mid-2000s. So.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, if anything, it was a very early age smartphone, but it was by no means a modern smartphone.
Mm-hmm. Because it also looked a little too flat to be a Nokia. I know, because I had one of those old Nokias myself, and yeah, those things were kind of more like a tube. Anyway, were we on here?
I just finished.
Okay, so it's Tim. Your least favorite scene.
Least favorite scene is the scene where April does something to her mother at the end, and she says, "Forgive me," and I'm like, 1,000 questions pour to my mind. What is she doing? How does she know to do it? How does she know it's going to work? What is she trying to do? Is this her or is this the Shadowkin? What happened? All these things is like.
I'll explain later.
Yeah, that did seem to come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, she's basically sitting here trying to kill, and then suddenly she turns around and it's just
She went from about to cut her dad's head off to sticking her hand through her mom's.
It was a little abrupt and a little like, oh, we need to get this out of the way before the next episode. And I'm like, it didn't make a lot of sense, and I'm going to have to go with Tim on that. That's going to be my least favorite scene there, too.
That was a lot of
Because it just was confusing. That was the point that it might be explained in the next episode, but I can't say that right now because we haven't seen it and won't see it until at least Saturday and probably closer to next Wednesday for me. I know I have a lot of Ash vs. Evil Dead to catch up on somewhere during this week, so...
I'm so envious of you right now. I would like to see Ash vs. Evil Dead. I've seen that his sister came back.
Have you watched the entire first season now?
Oh, yeah. I've reviewed it, dude. I reviewed it and the original 3 movies in one franchise go.
If you go to the Starz website, you can actually see the first episode online?
Well, I can see the first episode, but I'm not going to be able to catch the rest of it.
I'm just telling you, you can at least see part 1.
It'll still leave me hanging, though. Anyway.
And then if you're very good and you bring a hard drive... Anyway.
Later. But yeah.
So that's going to take us to our final thoughts here, and we're going to finish it up with just the 4 of us. So, Bill, what was your final thoughts on the episode?
My first thought was this was a 2-parter, and we can't give it a rating.
Nope, we can't.
Mhm.
That was my first thought watching the episode.
That was pretty much mine too. And actually,
Yeah.
I predicted that last week when I saw the.
Oh, by the way, speaking of, I called it that was her dad.
Yes, you did.
Yep.
But I had mentioned the fact when I saw the fact that that next week's episode was called Bravish Heart, right after Co-Owner of a Lonely Heart. I'm like, that sounds like it's going to be a two-parter, and I was right.
Otherwise, it does seem very interesting that what seems to be the big bad fight is going to happen in the mid-season. So we can probably assume that something weird's going on with the governors later on in the season, or Quill is going to become an evil, going to go from the Doctor to the Master, which she was already halfway there. Otherwise, it's okay. I want to see the second half of it and kind of come up with a final there. More good than bad, I think, and definitely a very unique feel for Doctor Who. And some minor issues that drag it down a bit, but we'll see how the second half is for truly final thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Matt.
I have to agree. It seems that these stories suffer from a kind of sketchy start, but usually have at least a good conclusion so far. So yeah, I'm eager to see where the second half goes because it's going to be probably a fairly decent and, if not at least semi-competent ending.
All right.
And
Tim?
we're going to have a lot of conclusions and stuff. Sorry, and we're going to have a lot of decent conclusions to at least the few things, but I'm also betting they're building up a whole bunch of other side things for the last half. There.
Okay. Just a little hint, guys. When you stop talking, I start counting in my head, and when I hit to 5, I move on. So, Tim, your final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I thought the acting in this episode was good. I hope the questions I had will get answered. And of all the plot lines introduced, I'm looking forward most to the new Headmistress Flower Petal plotline getting resolved most.
Okay, then. My thoughts are that this wasn't as good as the last episode. The which so far has been the best of the class episodes there, eh? But it's still not as bad as what we've seen at its lowest, which I believe was the Dragon Tattoo one. It suffers a little bit from being a bit choppy in a couple of places where it seems like maybe they cut it for time or edited it for content, but that did kind of take away from the flow of the episode and made it a bit rough. But at the same time, they are dealing with some things that are very interesting. I can't wait to see how these plot lines conclude if they don't drag out for the entire remaining 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So those are my thoughts. And as I mentioned earlier, we are not going to vote, or we're not going to rate this episode because we need to rate the 2-parter in its entirety. And to do that, we will have to see next week's episode. So I'm pretty sure that's all we have to say about Co-Owner of a Lonely Heart. Is there anything else anyone wants to add?
Spoon.
Sense8 did the shared orgy scene first and better.
What did it?
Sense8, starring Martha Jones. Or not starring, but she was like, I don't know, 9th or 10th.
I never really watched that one.
Ah.
All right, then. That's all we have to say about Co-Owner of a Lonely Heart. Bill, if you want to take us out there, I can...
Yep. Okay, if you like listening to us, and I'm assuming if you're still listening at this point that you do, go ahead and like the video so we can get out there, and subscribe on Twitch and YouTube so you can keep seeing us. You can also head on over to Facebook and Twitter for news and updates. And if you want to support us, you can do so at patreon.com/unearthlypodcast or gofundme.com/MIBSpain.
All right, so on next week's episode, Ram and April are on the planet of the Shadow King, and everyone has to deal with killer cherry blossoms. Are we crazy yet? We'll see. It's Bravish Heart, written by Patrick Ness and starring the class cast at all.
Still holding out hope for Tegan.
So join us next week, eh? And I'll probably be talking normal by then.
Living on a prayer.
Or this will be your normal accent.
E.
We'll know if my IP just changes to Calgary.
So are we going to call you Zap Browstar from now on?
No.